So, hi, I just want to give some sort of feedback and some constructive criticism on the Overwatch League. I've just finished watching the playoffs for the Overwatch League Stage 1, and I wanted to just give some thoughts and criticism on the event and on the league itself. This is coming from someone that isn't a pro or an analyst or really a big sports watcher. I have watched a lot of sports. I've watched a bit of esports like Smite, CSGO, even Street Fighter, but ultimately esports is kind of never really captivated me until Overwatch League. So I just want to give some thoughts. I want to just give my general opinion and just a couple of little constructive criticisms about the Overwatch League and how it's been handled. But ultimately, if I had to summarize really quickly, really enjoyed it. It's nice to watch a show that is just so well produced about esports, and I think the way they're doing it is just really excellent. So nothing too bad, but feedback is feedback. I think it'll be worth it as much as I'm not really anyone of significance. I'm just a spectator, and as a spectator, this is my view, and there we go. We're all entitled to some opinion, I guess. I think my first point I want to bring up, and I think it's probably the smartest point that any esport has ever done, and that is fixing the teams to tangible locations. The fact that these team names are not like, something dumb like Optic or FaZe or Envious or something like that, I feel like it really nails down the legitimacy of the whole event. I don't know what it is, but when it's attached to a city, it really just for some reason I care more. It's something I think it's just the fact that it's a tangible location, and the fact that the names are not terrible like Optic or FaZe. Whenever I think of those two names, I just think of the Call of Duty days and the sort of try-hard, esport, MLG sort of mentality. And to be quite honest with you, I think it feels like a phase. No pun intended. But the whole idea of these sort of team names is it's obviously kind of hard-seeded into internet culture, but it doesn't feel like a sport. It feels like a bunch of teenagers being a little angsty. And I think it was a smart move to have these teams actually have a home location and have a city, because obviously then you truly get sort of rivalry that you wouldn't normally get. I mean, to take an example here, you'd have something like Envious and Cloud9. Yes, Envious is mostly known for European teams, and then Cloud9 is mostly known for sort of North American teams. But the problem is that really anyone could support anyone, but because these two teams are from LA, there's natural fans, there's natural favoritism and natural bias, and I think that really helps have some certain teams, like something like Florida Mayhem, who may have not been performing as well, gain fans because people from Florida, people know Florida, people like Florida, and people want to support Florida. It breeds a competition that I think esports has been kind of missing since we've just been calling ourselves just really dumb internet names. The personal opinion, but I think it's time that these sort of team names kind of decided to get a little bit more mature and not be kind of angsty, if anything. Two, I think some of the camera work could be better. I've noticed, because I watch New York Excelsior mostly as my second favorite team, I've noticed that whenever Pine, one of the South Korean players, comes on, the show gets tunnel vision. Whenever Pine comes on, the whole perspective of the event or the match is just Pine. And sometimes it's just hard to follow what's happening just due to the fact that something like Dota is top-down, Smite has the same, so it's easy for readability when you're actually watching it as a spectator. But with Overwatch, it's a lot harder because things are just moving around and the top-down view doesn't really convey well what is actually happening. When you have the camera just fixated on one player, you get one view of the match. As much as Pine is a ridiculously good player, it really just, you don't see anything else. You don't see a lot of the action. The show needed way more wide angles and some better camera work in some areas. I think there is sort of a problem as a spectator that you just don't see the action as well as you should. Especially the fact that the game is so quick a lot of the times. So it's kind of hard for people to follow, especially if you're not really familiar with Overwatch, for example. This is something that I've had problems with Street Fighter because the game is so technical, and so to really appreciate Street Fighter, you have to know the sort of the frame data and the sort of the matchups and all this. And I feel that if you don't know that, it just feels like a bunch of people just, whiffing and just punching each other and doing special moves. The more impressive moments don't read as well for players that are not really captivated in the game itself. It's probably because I read Adobe Captivate and found out about that for the first time that I've saying that word a lot. But with Overwatch, I do feel, yes, it could do with some wide angles and some overheads a little bit more, especially in some areas where you could tell that, obviously, because the map is rendered so that the roofs are not see-through, I do think that it would help if some of the maps did have that, so you can actually see the map from overhead and see what's happening inside in some areas. But who knows? Personal opinion again. The last point I really want to bring up, and I think this has already been addressed, so forgive me if I'm just, been out of the loop as such, but I feel some of the commentators do not show enough enthusiasm for some of the teams. Someone brought this up on Reddit. I think I'll link it in the description, but some of the teams, especially, have just been kind of thrown to the dogs, if anything. Something like Shanghai Dragons have been just kind of shut down, and as much as they have not won a single set, it seems like it doesn't help when the commentators are just don't show as much enthusiasm, if anything. As much as it is kind of, it's expected as such that Shanghai would lose to Shoal Dynasty or something like that. The point of the commentator is to make you feel at least sort of enthusiastic and also allow people to see what is actually happening. But the thing is that when you just don't hype up a team, it says to the spectator, why am I watching this? When it's a game like, say, in real life, England versus Italy, in a sport like football, for example, both teams are well-renowned, both teams are kind of hyped up, and yeah, you would want to watch it. When it's something like Saudi Arabia versus Zimbabwe, you would hope to be the commentators, you would hope to just bring some enthusiasm to the match and make you really want to care. You don't want to switch people off. You don't want to just seem like, oh, well, if Saudi wins, nothing's going to happen. Why are we watching this? And I feel like some of the games especially just had that air to it. And I think, honestly, it's something that should be improved over the course of the next stage. I don't blame him for being not as enthusiastic. I just think that it is somewhat unfair, especially on a team like Shanghai Dragons that's had a rough time. They have had nothing but rough times this last stage. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they should hopefully bring a little bit more enthusiasm and a little less bias to some of these matches. My fourth point, I just literally just thought this up, I know, but times and the Overwatch League points. This is something that I had an idea for a bit, but I feel like the game needs something outside of quick play, competitive, and arcade. I'm not gonna lie, it's boring sometimes to just keep playing the same game over and over again. And right now, the two main modes are just that. The other modes, especially the arcade modes, do mix things up a bit, but even then, it's just for events. And I feel like the game needs something like, you know, outside of just quick play and competitive and the standard mode to be entranced in. Also, I feel that something that is like a sort of a meta game as such, something that is outside of the game and that, you know, your gameplay actually contributes to. And I feel that Overwatch League is a great way to integrate that. Something like a faction war, as simple as that, would be probably beneficial. I would care a little bit more about winning if it meant that I get points and contribute to like some greater goal for the team I support. Something like maybe you get more points if you wear a certain jersey, for example, on certain characters. If you perform well with a character with that jersey on, you gain a little bit of points. Right now, I have no idea how it really works, but right now, I believe it's tied to whenever you watch it on Twitch. And as a British person, I do not physically have the time, energy to watch a match at 4 a.m. It's not happening. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not that committed, especially the fact that I work nights as well, so in the weekend, it's just not happening. I would hope that there is another way to gain Overwatch League points, especially for players that are in Europe and do not physically have the, you know, the energy and the time to wake up at 4 a.m. to watch their favorite team for 2 hours. Honestly, I feel that something in the game would definitely help Overwatch League even more so, besides from just the jerseys, because I think the jerseys are pretty expensive, I'm not gonna lie. Overwatch League, definitely enjoyed it. It feels like an actual sport, and that's probably the best compliment I could probably give that. I really enjoyed it, really hoping to see the teams develop over time. Definitely towards the end, I started to notice that there's been a lot of upsets, and I feel that is definitely showing that some of the American teams and European teams are starting to actually get good. Overall, really enjoyed the season, or the stage, and looking forward to the next one. And that's how I'm going to end this video. So, see you in the next one. Peace.